women and men from all over the world registering for this event today, from Armenia, Egypt, Latvia, South Africa, Spain, Switzerland, and the United States of America. And now let's see from which city you are from, to learn more about who is visiting the virtual room. Please click on the Linktree link in the chat. Melanie will give it to you in the chat. I see it not. And answer the following question on menti.com. That will be interesting because, yeah, let's kick off here the interactive part of this meetup. And yeah, we want to know from which city you are from and in which industry you are involved. Also, our hashtags of the day are sustainability, women empowerment, female founders, new work, transformation, and sustainable. So let's see, where are you from? Daniel? I think that will be really interesting. So okay. Now, lots of German cities here. You see a lot of Berlin people and London. I see. Oh, that's interesting. Malmö, Sweden, Madrid, Copenhagen. Hello to everybody. And of course, the German crowd is huge. Milano is also here. Stockholm, Barcelona based. Yeah. Cool. And the next question was, in what kind of sectors are you involved in? So that will be really interesting for us too, to connect and for our growing community at Systaimability. Oh yeah, education, you're in the right place here. Social entrepreneurship as well. Career transformation, sounds good. Social business. Consulting as well, of course. Oh, there are a lot. So, perfect. Then, are there anything else? No. Yes. Then I will share my screen again. I said it already, our hashtags of the day for all your social media channels, if you want, are sustainability, women empowerment, female founders, new work, transformation, and sustainable. Please connect, get in connection. So, oops. Yeah, sustainability's purpose is to connect and inspire people with a vision for a truly sustainable and fair place for everyone. Pooling this community's energy, channeling all our creativity and innovation to bring about system change. Today, let's liberate our minds by these inspiring two women, Aileen Moeck and Naomi Ryland. We invite you for an hour journey to transformative rooms of thinking. Imagine you can bring new ideas into your existing systems and new female perspectives, connectivity and visions of a sustainable future. What can we change together with this amazing community? We are connected to our partners, BTA, Business Trends Academy, Berlin, Human.Earth in Matt, and ULab at Presencing Institute of Massachusetts of Technology, the MIT, you know. Welcome also all members from new networks of our speakers, TBD, SAND, New Mittelstand, and die Zukunftsbauer. And also all members of Meeck Academy, Enter Me, and On Purpose International and Berlin, and everybody from the ULab Accelerator. So yes, let's start. Talk with us and please ask and never stop doing this. That's our claim. Let's be of one unit to build bridges of visionary ideas into this stormy and complex ocean of our current systemic world, full of large topics like climate change, the COVID-19 pandemic, and social cohesion. Before I introduce our guest, I want to present and thank my whole team that made this event possible. Thank you so much to Melanie, Lucy, Daniel, Martin, and Jason. There are also several inspiring, there are also several inspiring women in the audience whom we are really interested to hear in our later Q&A round. So I will look who we are and who can ask questions later on in this Q&A round. So I stop my presentation now because I should. Okay, now. But first, and after all this information, before we start with the interviews, I want to invite you to leave behind the busy day. Close your eyes if you want, relax, let's clear our mind and make ourselves comfortable. Sit down, a little break, and breathing in and breathing out. Of being completely part of this moment and feeling the connectivity around the world. Lots of inspiring women in the virtual place and space, different point of views, diverse ideas of visions of a future for their children. Let's breathe in. Let's breathe in this special moment of time. Breathe in, breathe out. Be part of this moment, relax, breathe in, breathe out. Last time, breathe in, breathe out. So, yeah, now and slowly come back to this room and let's start. I want to present two inspiring women full of visions and good ideas for our future. I'm so happy to have you here, Naomi and Aileen. And I will start with Aileen. Let me check this. So. Yes. Thank you so much for coming, Aileen. Yeah, how are you today?
Good. Thanks for being so I can be here.
So great to have you. I will begin with you. Aileen, you founded the Zukunftsbauer Institute in March 2020 after being shocked by our educational system not having an idea of what our children will professionally do in their future. For Zukunftsbauer, for our English-speaking listeners, it's builder of the future. You're not thinking about the future like a scientist, I heard that, but like the combination of transformation, personal development of each individual, and resilience. You create the possibility to integrate a new subject into schools to connect children with their strength of imagination for our future. So your work is not about writing down what is happening in the future, but to activate by creating new visions and using the creative power of each individual. So a concept, and I brought you design a new educational system which includes this creativity for our next generations, shapers of their own future. So my question is, at which moment you decide to change current system and fight for transformation? What is your why, the big why?
Yeah, so my big why or my mission is to empower and inspire human beings to create the future and their own images of the future. And we also call it to be an entrepreneur of your own future, so not just a shaper or builder. And yeah, I think I was always against the system already in school. I went to school in Berlin, so the education system here is really fucked up. So yeah, that's why I wanted to change it early on. But it took me a few years before I really started changing the system, and was in 2015, I think, when I started, because that's when I did my master's degree in future studies. So here in Berlin, you can study future studies or future science. It's called at Freie Universität, but there are also other cities where you can study that. So in like all over the world. And the main concept behind it, it's called Futures Literacy. It's a UNESCO concept, which helps you to learn future thinking and to create a mindset that is, like you said, that builds on resilience and creativity and just a different way of thinking, and especially imagination. So I already worked in innovation management before I did the future studies master. So I was always keen on trends and entrepreneur and startup things. But 2015 was the year of the movie Back to the Future from 1985. And when I worked in innovation, I realized, well, lots of ideas of this movie actually became reality. So that was when, and then at the same time, I started future studies. So I was like, okay, so basically, if we have an idea of something or we have an image in our mind, it just takes maybe a bit of time or some resources, and then we can actually create it. So our imagination is a very big human power that we have, and we should use it way more, so we can use it more to create images of the future, especially when it comes to social change, not just technology change and progress. But at the same time, if you come up with new ideas or innovations, we should also be very careful about the stories we tell and the images that we show people, because it sticks in our minds and it becomes reality. So yeah, this whole idea of future studies and imagination, I found very interesting. And then I realized that that it is actually, so I was very happy that I was 25 and I had the chance to do this very elite master's program. But I think it should be something for everyone. So, which is why I started with the Zukunftsbauer, and I said, well, I have to go back to school, because this is where everyone could have access to this way of thinking. And also we go to school and we want to learn about life, and everything we do every day is for the future, but we never learn what the future actually is. And we only have subjects that are based on the past and history and facts, but not on values and images and stories. So this is what I wanted to change. So I created basically a concept which is for teenagers, 14 or 15-year-old. And they go on a little future journey. So they reflect and talk what are trends and innovations, but very diverse. So utopia, dystopia. We don't say, well, that's the future. We'd say, well, this is the current trend. What do you think about? How do you feel? How do you think it could change the system, or I don't know, like an industry? And at the end, we don't ask, well, what do you think the future will look like? We ask, how do you want the future to look like? In which world do you want to live in 50 years? And based on that, the kids create visions and missions. So we do backcasting. We go from the future to today. And we ask, okay, if you have this mission for the future, what, for example, like what job could you help today? Or is it a job role we have to create and it's a fictive one? So yeah, we work with a lot of design fiction. And I think we need way more design fiction to create new systems.
Okay, cool. Yeah. So your why is based on these educational system for the next generations to
Yeah.
in the to the kids and give them a transfer thinking on their way.
Yeah, I mean, this is one. So I started in school because this is where I have access to like all human beings in Germany, if I manage to reach every school. But the idea is a bit bigger because it's about democratizing the future and innovation paradigm, actually, because what we have right now is there are only a few people and a very certain group that tells us, well, this is our human future. This is how innovation paradigms look like. And it's very based on, let's say, singularity and Silicon Valley. And I think maybe that's not what we want to see in the future. Maybe these are not our values. So I also want to inspire and help people that we can all create our own invention and innovation systems and values.
Yes. Then these
Yeah, I think we lost Felicitas, so I will take over from now. So thanks a lot, Aileen. It was really interesting to get an introduction to your work. And now I will hand over to Naomi. Could you tell us something about TBD and about your work? And introduce yourself to our community. Okay, Feli.
I'm so sorry, my internet is not that good. I don't know why. So I want to ask Naomi
maybe you can switch off the video to make it more stable.
Yeah. Do you hear me?
Yeah.
Also, Naomi was fails advice. No, sorry. In a fails on how business systems have to be in the future. How to current system both at all costs, competition and pressure. Which transformation do we need and why are we represented? Naomi published TBD in 2014, and TBD has become a platform for professionals looking for jobs with a positive social and environmental impact, enabling them to build their networks and exchange knowledge and service. He is also founding member on the board of Social Entrepreneurship Network Germany, known as IFO. Naomi conducted numerous interviews with progressive female founders who shared their experiences with new business models. She wrote in her new book, Starting a Revolution, and relearned together with her co-author, Lisa Jaspers, how to radically change their own thoughts. They published 11 principles for a revolutionary working world to empower other female founders and those that aspire to be a transformation to a female future of work. So we have these 2 point of views for the future. And now my question for Naomi is, what exactly is your why and behind your platform and your book?
Cool, thank you so much. also to Aileen, wow, I hadn't come across you before, but that was really inspiring. It sounds like you're doing amazing things, and now I know why they brought us together, because there's a lot of there's a lot of alignment between what we're doing. So just to talk a bit about my transformation, maybe, which I feel like I'm very much in the middle of, but I've been through various stages. So since Aileen talked a little bit about education and the importance of education, maybe to start there, when I was at school, which was a private girls' school in the UK, which was very academically rigorous and where there was a big focus on academic success and status, I basically wanted to be rich. That was my, when people used to ask me what I wanted to do when I was older, what I wanted to be when I was older, I would just say rich. And that was a bit of a provocation, but it also just reflected the sort of like upbringing that I had got, not necessarily from my parents, but more from this kind of environment of private school, that kind of attaining external status symbols in whatever way possible was the way to go. Coming to Berlin knocked that out of me. You'll be pleased to hear. For those of you who live in Berlin, you'll probably understand why. So I spent my year abroad here. I studied German, also something completely unrelated to what I do now, apart from the fact that I live in Germany, obviously. And yeah, it just kind of like opened my eyes up to a different perspective on life. People here don't wear suits and don't really necessarily go for that corporate lifestyle that I was kind of like programmed into in the UK. And the other kind of big factor in my personal transformation at that stage was doing some voluntary work with a refugee family. That was actually when I was back then in the UK after I'd spent some time in Berlin. And I actually worked with a family, in particular with a woman, the mother of 2 children, who was the same age as me at the time, so around 21, from Iraq. And she was really, really working hard to establish herself and find her feet and figure out, how to get a job and how to learn English, and against kind of impossible circumstances, living in a really awful part of Nottingham where I was studying. And it really kind of opened my eyes to my own privilege and the access that I had to things which I just took for granted, in comparison to somebody who was just born in a different place and just as a result had a completely different fate to me. And that was the point where I was like, actually, I don't want to use this privilege and these talents and this education that I've had to make other people rich, because effectively that's what the corporate world does, but rather to improve the lives of other people with less privilege than I have. So that was a really kind of like transformative moment for me, which set me on a completely different path. Without going through my entire biography of the last 15 years, I followed that path of kind of philanthropic work, of charitable work, of social enterprise work, right up to founding my own social enterprise. And realized over time that in a way I was still kind of externalizing my value. So trying to kind of, I guess, in a way still kind of like look for status and validation. And this time it was through, doing good. And I think that's like a trap that lots of people in the social and sustainable sector fall into. Like, their goal isn't to make as much money as possible or to get the best car as possible, but to do as much good as possible. And often that comes at the price of themselves and their own kind of health and well-being, and other things, for example, financial security. And so over time, when we started The Changer and TBD, it was a platform to help people find purpose in their careers. And over time, we've developed a theory that it's not actually just purpose that you need. That's not enough. You really need a sense of belonging, which means not only belonging for people that look like me and have my background, but people with all sorts of different backgrounds, and a sense of well-being. And without those three aspects, you can't live a sort of fulfilled and sustainable career or life. And what I found is that even running your own company, so I founded TBD, it was called The Changer back then, back in 2014, and I've been running it ever since. We've now got a team of about 10 people, but it's still quite a small company. Even running your own company where you think that you've got all of the freedom in the world to kind of change the way that you work and to kind of organize things around how you want to be, you're still very much functioning and kind of like stuck within a system. And this system isn't just outside of us, it's also within us. So basically everything that we've, been socialized about, learned in our childhood, learned in school, learned from kind of, looking at the way other people are, the way that our parents are, what people get rewarded for, what feels, what people praise you for. All of that stuff feeds into our own understanding of what it means to do good work, to have a successful business, to have a successful career. And we have this idea that there is just one way to achieve that. And mostly it involves getting the company, or let's stay with the example of being an entrepreneur, growing the company as quickly as possible, employing as many people as possible, getting as big an investment as possible, getting as many awards as possible, getting as much press as possible. And even in the sustainable and social sector, sorry, I live in Moeck, so silent.
Okay.
Yeah,
really interesting. Now we want to look at what does this mean for our sustainable future. And we want to invite you to come on a transformation journey with us. And I want also invite our community to interact now. You can write down your questions during the next part of this journey with Aileen and Naomi in our chat. Also please ask and never stop doing this. And this journey is about time. We want to look back in the past together, in the present and in the future with you. So Naomi and Aileen, my questions are back in the past. What do you both think, which were the biggest transformations in the past? What were the most significant so-called change moments in our earlier history for these systems around us we have today? So,
Naomi, do you want to start or shall I?
Up to you.
Go ahead, because there's quite a lot of sirens going past at the moment.
Okay.
I was kind of like mid flow still, but the sirens are interrupting, so don't worry.
Yeah, so that is a difficult question because that question also brings up the question how future actually is developed or how future is created. For me, and I think that the invention of the watch and time, so in like 1500 around, was a big thing for us humans, because that is when we changed our perspective on time and what the future is. So before, time was not a commodity. So you looked at it maybe once in your village or something, or you went with like natural flows, let's say. But then all of a sudden, time was available every time in seconds. So it got way more and more detailed. And I think this is the start when our accelerated world started. So lots of people say it was just when the digital revolution started, like 20 years ago, or when globalization started, like 30 years ago. But I believe it was when we had a different perspective on time. Because before, the future was just like a space or even a place. It was called utopia, and people thought it's a different place in this same time zone they could reach. But then it changed, and the future became more of a goal and a plan and something that we can foresee, where we can use data today, big data, to extrapolate it. Because we kind of started this linear thinking, and that wasn't before. Before, we had lots of complex thinking because we already lived in different systems, but then we started being in this linear world, especially with the economy now, which is all based on linear thinking. So I think that was a huge, let's say, event in the past. But yeah, I think all the transformation waves that we as humans experience, it's often related to maybe one single event, like Corona now, or 9/11 or Chernobyl. So it's this one event that changes the continuity of our time and the evolution. Or it's like a big wave because of change, because of an invention or an innovation. Like there is this idea of this big 5 waves, so automation and steam, machines and stuff like that. So yeah, I think that for me is how I try to explain and what transformation is and how it happens. But actually, I think transformation is something that we can start and do proactively, whereas change is for me a bit more passive. So maybe that's also different, a difference in the wordings. But yeah, I hope that's an answer for your question.
Yeah, of course. And yeah, you talked about time and this kind of transformation from the past to now. And now I want to make a bridge to Naomi, because she was a little bit cut off. I'm so sorry. Yeah, with your new book, Starting a Revolution, you had a lot of interviews with people, and the system change of organizational development. And yeah, we have lots of concepts in this time now, and they were beginning in the past, like concepts like spiral dynamics or from Frederick Laloux. And what do you think? What were the change moments in the past for this situation now, and what do you say in your book, or what? Yeah, sorry.
Thank you. Yeah, I'll try and just kind of like wrap up what I was trying to say before, and then hopefully that will also kind of answer the question. Just in terms of like recognizing the systems that we're in and that are in us, what became clear to me and Lisa, who I wrote the book with, is that people who are somehow like in some way marginalized by the system. So my experience as a female entrepreneur was one of constantly like hitting a wall or a ceiling, and also just not feeling like comfortable in that ecosystem. That people who are somehow pushed out of the system, that can also be introverted people, because you know how our system loves extroverts and people who love to talk and put themselves forward. Of course, people of color, people with disabilities, that people who've had that experience have a unique opportunity to change the system, because it doesn't work for them. So we can, to a certain extent, identify what's wrong with the system, and we've got a high motivation and incentivization to change it. And that's why one of the reasons that in the book we focused on female entrepreneurs, because as with many other people who aren't white males, there are hardly any female entrepreneurs. I think, depending on what study you look at, it's like 1%, 16% in Germany. And often these women get talked about and talked to in terms of how do they need to change? How do we need to change women so that they do much better as entrepreneurs, or fit into the system much better? And when we looked at the system and the business world and stuff, we actually thought, well, is this something to aspire to? Like, I think I'm preaching to the converted here when I say that, you know, the way that the business world works right now is probably not particularly aspirational when we look at all the issues with climate change and, you know, the disintegration of society that we're experiencing at the moment. That you can kind of trace back to the economy. That maybe we shouldn't be looking at women as the deficit, you know, as the things that the people that need to change, but rather as a source for inspiration and knowledge and experience of how to do things differently. And so we talked to some really, really incredible women who've really just rejected the status quo of doing business. Of course, there are a lot of female entrepreneurs out there who you might have heard of, who have kind of like ticked all the boxes, got the big investment, got all the press and done the big exit or whatever. But we were kind of looking for different kinds of women who were trying to change the system or create a new system for themselves. And I could go into a little bit more detail about what some of those women did, but one of the ones that I really love is Shirley. She's 90 years old. She actually founded a tech company in the 1960s. She was a developer herself. She wasn't allowed to work anymore in an office because she was married and had children. So she founded her company at home. She only employed other women who also worked from home. And they actually became so traditionally successful that they programmed the black box, the Concorde black box, amongst other things. And she wasn't just satisfied with building up a company with only women in a completely male-dominated world. She actually went against the status quo in lots of ways. So she, first of all, as I mentioned, it was a completely remote company. So that was very unusual back then, because they had to send the code to each other by post. But they did it and it worked. And it worked for them as mothers. And she transferred the ownership of the company to her team, to her employees. So not only did they benefit massively financially from it, they also were able to take decisions on the future of the company.
Okay.
So that as an example of the past, of like how you can change things in small ways when you think it's impossible. But of course, a lot of these women didn't get any visibility. Hardly anybody knows her, even though she's one of the most traditionally successful tech entrepreneurs of the UK.
Okay.
It's also a case of bringing these people to the surface and finding success a little bit differently.
Okay, yeah, thank you. Super interesting. But we only have 15 minutes to go. So yeah, my last question for Aileen was, I was so inspired a few days ago, you posted something on LinkedIn about cathedral thinking. So this concept caught us all at Systaimability, and it's about to act for a higher cause in the future, which will not survive personally. And so now my question, and also for the community, and we will hear some other community questions from the community to bring into our discussion. But what is your cathedral to work and to fight for? Yes, in the next 100 years or 50 years, what do we want to have in the future, and how do you want your children's children to live?
Oof.
And I will hand over to Daniel and Jason to bring us some questions from the community. And perhaps Aileen can talk shortly about this vision of future of this cathedral, and Naomi 1-2 words to this cathedral also, and then we can put some question from the audience. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, but maybe I can start with one other question that you also sent me, because I think it's a good reply to Naomi, who's talking about how we have to change the system, not ourselves, because I had to struggle with it a lot. I'm also part of a party. I'm a member of a party in Germany, the Social Democrats, well, SPD. And I realized a lot that the future we now see and we create is very much based on the people who work in politics also. And if, for example, we just have a parliament that is full of like 60% white men over 50 guys, then this is also the future we will see, because they reflect more or less the values and the problems and the topics they see and of their personal life. I mean, of course, they are good and bad, right? But I also realized that when I worked in my party like every Tuesday, that it was really hard, because when I started founding my own company, I didn't have the time to do it, and it was always on a Tuesday evening. And I don't know any mom or young dad that has time on a Tuesday evening. So why don't we change this politic discussions, for example, to Saturday noon or lunch on a playground? So this is, I think, the system that we can change, like the tiny elements Naomi was also talking about. It's not this very big system. There are always like certain small adjustments we can already do today. And this is, for example, changing that. And now for my future, well, we as futurists, we work on this idea of a good Anthropocene. So Anthropocene is like the Earth stage we live in now. It's created by us humans, and how we transformed this planet for the last 200 years. And our idea is to create a good Anthropocene, so people and planet balanced. And for me, that means it's green. It means that we use technology for a reason and for a purpose, and not just because it's cool and fancy. And it means to be nicer to other humans, just to be nice. I love this idea of Rutger Bregman in this book. I don't know the English title, but you probably know it, like
Humankind.
Yeah. So I think it's very good that we start with our own kindness. And what I also realize, and what I want to see in the future, is that we develop a different idea of innovation and progress, because right now it's still based on profit and efficiency and automation, and we create all these communication tools to have more free time at the end, but I don't see that we have more time. I see we have less time and we're struggling more and more. So I think we have to reduce a lot of things. And I think to talk about the concept of time, so for example, to have a free Future Friday where people don't work, but they can do voluntary work, or they can just love themselves or care for their family or do a neighbor's project or whatever. To have this global Future Friday, I think that would be such a cool start to give more people actually the chance to create something, because so many people have very tough time schedules and they're struggling because they need money, they have to work a lot. So for them, it's very privileged to create something. And this is also what I hear a lot of times, that thinking about utopia and visions is very privileged. And I think that's very sad, because that's how our story as humans started. If you read Harari, he's talking a lot about stories and imagination. And this is how, like, all the stories we talk and tell each other about capitalism, about democracy, these are all just stories. So we need time to tell us these stories and reflect them. So that's my wish for the future, to be nice and give people time.
Perfect. Thanks a lot for this very visionary answer. Naomi, same question maybe to you. Can you give us a peek of your cathedral and your ideal future? And could you also maybe say a few lines about your book, because in the chat it's really recommended and people want to know more about it. We already posted a link to that. So these are the two questions to you.
Sure. I'll try to keep it brief, because I know that we've talked a lot and we want some time for questions. So I would, almost completely agree with what Aileen said. I think that's an incredible vision for the future. And really for me, it's just, transformation, I think I've come to believe, is external transformation, environmental transformation, social transformation has to start with personal transformation. And I think that's often been something that's been missing, that people, even those trying to change things, are still kind of chasing rainbows a little bit and chasing dreams and status and validation, and spending enough time kind of focusing on yourself, doing coaching, doing therapy, figuring out what you need in order to, kind of stay authentic, stay in yourself, and not be tempted by things like power, money, and to really incentivize the big changes and the big external transformations. So I'm a big advocate for, right from the school, I think it's amazing if this kind of thing starts at school, to really think about, like Aileen was saying, career development in a completely different way. But it's not just about what you want to be, but who you want to be. And I think that's a really important question to start with. And the book, it's basically a business, pretty concrete handbook for people who want to work differently. Can be for entrepreneurs, but also for people just in kind of regular jobs that want to get some inspiration and new perspectives on smashing the status quo, basically, and doing things differently. And I think a lot of people that have read it have felt a real kind of resonance, that they have kind of found for the first time a business book that actually sounds like the voice inside their head, and gives people a bit of strength to kind of follow that heart feeling and the intuition that things in our current like work and economic and business context don't feel very good, and that it's not you that's wrong, it's the system, and how you can sort of start to try to change that.
Yeah, thank you very much for your answer. I would open the room now for questions of the audience, and I see that Pirate Leaf from EIT Klimaklik has a question to Aileen. Maybe you just
Thank you.
Yeah.
Wonderful. Can you hear me well?
Yes.
Yes.
Great.
Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for your question.
So yeah, I'm here actually. I can see my name says EIT Klimaklik because that's what I normally use for my daily work. But I'm also a co-founder of a startup. We're just starting it up, and we want to create learning materials, learning experiences for school kids around STEM, or now it's called STEAM because of arts included. And I'm aware of the futures literacy, and I'm very amazed by. I have experienced it. I have been helping to facilitate it as a learner, and I thought about, could we introduce some of these principles into regular learning? So it's not a special workshop about futures literacy, but actually the vocabulary we use, or the way we connect the learning with the real world challenges. And I was looking for some examples, perhaps where it has worked well, and maybe there's even a good guideline that we could use, already start to integrate it into our learning materials.
There's this global organization, it's called Teach the Future. So they collect material, and especially teacher material, from all over the world, and they give access to you from all over the world. So they help you to integrate futures literacy in different subjects and education topics, because as you said, futures literacy as literacy in general, it's not one subject or topic or one workshop. It's a way of thinking and doing, and how we see relationships and interact with people. So it's very important to combine it with other topics. In Finland, I think you can find lots of inspiration because they're very good to combine sustainability, innovation, and future thinking. It's even their #1 goal in education.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot. Maybe if somebody else has a question of the audience, please also raise your hands. And other than that, I would give the next question now to Marlene, please. Maybe you can ask your question.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So my question is for Aileen. So first of all, it's very interesting what you're doing, and I was just wondering, how do you reach the schools? And also, I would be interested about your business model. I know this takes a little bit of time, maybe to explain, but maybe in a short while, because I'm always wondering if you're doing something like this. Is it financed by I don't know the English word, öffentlicher Träger, for example, or do you have like private investors who are helping you? And how do you like reach the kids? Are you doing the programs in school with them in the class, or how do they also know about this program?
So we started with workshops in schools where I also trained the kids. But our approach is to create and develop material and trainings for teachers, because we think everything starts with the teachers. So they have to understand our way of thinking and like all the things Naomi and I am talking about. So we start with a teacher as a person, and we give them the material. And it's an open education resource approach. So most of it is for free. And we developed it by ourselves. So we had for 1 year a scholarship from our university as a social innovation. And then we had one big foundation that helped us to bring it to a few schools in Germany, but now actually we are struggling to find a public foundation or finance partners. So we do all by ourselves in our free time. Yeah, but this is why we also started the Zukunftsbauer as a for-profit organization, work with companies, because we want to make money over there and then put it in our own non-for-profit, because we realize we don't want to depend on other institutions. As Naomi said, I was an education activist for 2 years, and I really had this activism fatigue and burnout last year, because I did so much and I couldn't live from it, and I couldn't reach the people, and yeah, it was really hard. So that's why I started, well, I have to start with for-profit work now to offer this for non-profit.
Yeah, thanks a lot. And I'm happy now to welcome Sharam Yalda, the first one of our first speaker, or one of the speakers of our first meetup. And just ask. We would be really happy to hear your questions to Naomi and Aileen, please.
Thank you, Daniel. Thank you, guys. Really lovely to be here. It was wonderful hearing you, and really inspiring work. So I just really had a question, because I think what you said, Aileen, about the time thing it made me really think, because I like looking at history to also look into the future. And I thought this idea of time is also quite a masculine concept. And, I also thought about this, maybe being this thing about also women, the topic, but also beyond the gender, around looking just at the feminine energy and the masculine energy, in terms of what we understand, the idea of maybe control, or this kind of, sometimes sustainability is more aligned with kind of feminine energy of understanding the future, so I don't know, for me, it also resonates the Terence McKenna's work about this idea of a dominant culture that was developed by these patriarchal armies, where men would go out and start exploiting land and resources and leave their family behind. And then the kind of relationship culture that was based around tribal societies, where women were much more dominant and much more present, kind of became sidelined by this explorative masculine culture of going out and looking for new adventures, with the horses, the chariots. So that started with the whole, we have a huge history going back to when that whole thing started. And to this day, we know that corporations and the business world is very much dominated by the military mentality. We know corporations are defined based on this military concept. And business is also defined on competition, not cooperation, very much not in how it should be, but in the way it is, because business can be a very collaborative, wonderful experience. But today we understand business to be an aggressive, competitive kind of behavior. But that's just, so my question is, to what extent is the feminine missing from your point of view? How do we, in this huge transformation we have to do in the next decade, how do we bring the feminine more in the forefront of this transition to make it more sustainable, make it more, I don't know. I think this is a huge challenge.
Thank you, Sharam. It's a very large question. And yes, Feli?
Yeah, perhaps Naomi can answer to this. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a great point and a big question. I think that, if you're just looking at the sustainable social sector right now, you see a lot of women working in the sector, a much higher proportion than men, but still at the management level, a lot of men. So you already kind of see how the system, even this sort of alternative progressive world is still functioning within this system, which keeps certain hierarchies and certain power structures in place. So I kind of think we need to start to build alternative structures and alternative systems, rather than trying to, in a way, trying to fix what's there, that there's a lot of power and potential in building new networks and new communities on different kinds of foundations, which are maybe even a bit more radical than some of the sustainable movements that we've seen so far, which, I mean, if you look at, for example, impact investing, which is a massive trend, in my opinion, that's not very systemically different to the current kind of economic system that we have, or the current system for investing. And so if you really want to radically change things, you need to really like rethink everything. You can't just kind of like take a system that works in the traditional investing world and then put it into the impact investing world. And in the same way, you can't take the kind of traditional way of doing business and then put sustainable on the front or social on the front and then keep everything the same. And it's quite difficult, as I said, for like women to sort of rise up, or other marginalized groups to sort of rise up within the system. So I think there's a lot of need for kind of solidarity and new rooms and new connections for people who've experienced marginalization to kind of create different systems. And I think that's going to be a big shift.
Yeah. Thank you so much for this great answer. Yeah, Aileen, maybe you want to shortly elaborate before we come to an end.
For this question or just in general?
Yeah, for this question. Yeah.
For such a big question, I think I would really agree with what Naomi said. But to be honest, I mean, it's called female perspectives today, but I never think in female or masculine and try to be like human, like it's quite natural. But I understand that we need more female perspective. So yeah, it's nothing that I can really add right now.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you. Yeah, thank you very much. It's I think it's a great answer because yeah, there are always many viewpoints, and yeah, I see we have quite a large number of systems thinker and systems innovator. So we would also like to invite you afterwards for a small get together. But for now, we would like to ask you a few more questions on Mentimeter. So I would like to like you to go back to our Mentimeter, and then I will just share the screen. And yeah, thank you. And ask you first. Wait, it should be this one. Yeah. So, yeah, how did you hear about us? So, okay. Yeah, thanks a lot. And the next questions, the next question we have is, wait. Yeah, please tell us about your 3 inspiring moments of the day. Yeah, we will give you the chance and show the slide later. Yeah, and obviously also share it in our Slack channel. So you're welcome to join. And I will hand over now to Martin to kick it out. Please, Martin, over to you.
Dein Ton.
You're still unmuted, Martin.
All right, so second chance. Time is running. And yeah, but give me just a minute just for self-commercial for sustainability. So we are a really, really young community, just founded in last December, and it's actually our second meetup. But we are growing up. It's an international community of change makers from all sectors. And yes, our aim is to connect people, start discussions, give impulses, like everything we've seen today, and create a lively community. And you can be part of it. We would be very happy if you want to be part of it. And most of our communication, discussions and stuff would be on our Slack channel. You find a link in the link tree as well. So we are happy if you join us there, yeah, for discussions, meet exciting people, share events, jobs, links, other sustainable input, and so to build up a really, really huge community for this. And it was actually our second meetup. We will make a third one in early spring, I think. So if you have any ideas, any topics you're interested in, let us know. And last thing is you will find us on Facebook, on Instagram, on LinkedIn, on YouTube as well. Also a relive of this inspiring event. And yes, so it would be great if you follow us. And that's actually finishing of the self-commercial part. It was just a minute, so thank you for listening. And yeah, so we are actually on the finish line. At first, the last words, we want to say a really, really huge and big thank you to Aileen, and a big thank you to Naomi for this, for all the input and you shared with us today. And yeah, thank you for having us with us. And yeah, maybe you are part of sustainability next time as well. Would be great. Thanks to all of the participants who joined us tonight. Thanks to BTA, to Human Nation for being our partners. And yeah, hopefully you are part of the sustainability community as well in future. And like Daniel said, afterwards, if you like to stay in this room for a short get together, just discuss what we heard in the last hour, you are very welcome. And now we want to do actually, we want to start a tradition actually. So we are doing it the first time, and we want to give our speakers actually the last words of this meetup. So maybe last words to our community. What do you want to join with them? What message you want to give them, give the audience on their way? In Germany, we would say, what's your appell to them? So thank you very much for joining us. And I think at first Aileen, second one Naomi, and it would be great if you have all of you afterwards for a short discussions. And thank you to having us. Aileen, now it's your turn for your last words.
Yeah, I just got inspired by what Lina in the chat just wrote, making Earth exploration just as sexy as space exploration. I find that very interesting because that shifts the external view to our internal view. And maybe if you work a lot with methods and approaches in your daily work, then try to add a bit of exploration before you do like design thinking and things like that, because that really narrows your like, how do you say, like the space you're working in, and maybe you have to make it bigger. So design thinking is a good tool. Don't want to say something against it. I just think try to think bigger and give more time for exploration and childish moments and curiosity and things like that.
Yeah, I love that. I would just add what I'm trying to do is sort of like invest in yourself and really trying to get to know yourself well and figuring out what you need to feel good, and that I believe good things come out of that for both you and for the rest of the society and the environment and everything. So yeah, that's how I would leave it.
Yeah. So we will stop now the live stream, and